In stories, good villains can push a good show to a great one. But some villains are tricky. Their motives aren't as simple as taking over the world, or being evil for evil's sake. They require more information to understand. These villains are often described as complex. Now, we've all heard the classic debate. My dad beats your dad, or my dad's better than your dad. But here's the real question. Is your dad better written than my dad? We're here to find out. Today we'll analyze two father figures, Askeladd from Vinland Saga and Silco from Arcane. But only one is well written. So, what makes a complex villain truly work? And where does one succeed while the other falls short? Let's break it down. When writing villains like Askeladd and Silco, a writer must ensure that their actions align with their established personalities. Their motivations should feel natural, and their contradictions should add depth rather than break the character. A relationship built on past violence, where the villain takes in the child of someone they killed, should be layered with tension, mistrust, and shifting power dynamics. If their actions don't reflect this, the relationship risks feel unconvincing or inconsistent. Both Silco and Askeladd fall into this archetype, having taken the child of someone they were responsible for killing. Given this setup, their relationships with Jinx and Thorfinn should have many underlying issues. Whether through resentment, manipulation, or reluctant mentorship, these bonds should challenge both characters and reinforce who they are or who they're becoming. When done well, this type of dynamic can create some of the most compelling character relationships. But when done poorly, the audience can question the character's motivations and choices. This is the core issue with Silco and Jinx. Silco taking in powder shouldn't make sense, yet the story treats it as such. Powder destroys Silco's factory, kills his men, then bizarrely jumps in his arms. This writing choice feels odd, given everything the audience knows about Silco and Powder. Powder should fear Silco, and Silco should be furious. Yet in this scene, he's suddenly portrayed as caring, just because he sees a crying child. Better yet, the scene unfolds with Vander's corpse still in the background. Moments earlier, he was fully prepared to kill or at least use Vander's children to manipulate his former friend. He even stationed Deckard to keep tabs on Vi and the gang, showing that he viewed them as assets to his plan rather than individuals he cared for. What makes this shift even more jarring is that the story had chances to hint at Silco's potential for compassion, but instead it doubled down on his cruelty. A perfect example is the cat scene. When Silco experiments with Shimmer, the moment could have hinted at a hidden level of compassion. Instead, he kills the cat without hesitation, reinforcing his cold, calculated nature. This cements him as someone who sees life as disposable, making his sudden acceptance of Powder harder to believe. Especially when he told Deckard, true power is only given to those who will do anything to achieve it. Again, this shows his lack of care for others and his priorities. Given this information, Silco's decision to take Powder doesn't work. If anything, he should be more inclined to get rid of her. She single-handedly ruined his plans, cost him resources, and proven herself as dangerous. Instead of reinforcing his calculated, ruthless nature, the story abruptly shifts his characterization, asking the audience to believe he would take in the person who destroyed everything he worked for. For a conflicted adoptive relationship like this to feel believable, the story must establish why Silco accepts Powder, and why she clings to him while making all of the pieces fit. The shift could have worked if Silco's characterization had been more nuanced from the start. Vinland Saga handles this relationship with far more care, ensuring the adoptive dynamic feels believable. On the other hand, Arcane skips over the moments that should have tested Silco and Jinx's bond, using a time skip to avoid these conflicts instead of exploring them. One key example is when Silco takes Jinx to the lake where Vander tried to kill him, retelling the story of Vander's betrayal. Given Jinx's fragile mental state, this should create conflict. Her new father figure constantly reminds her how he fought her old one. But instead of forcing her to process her past, the scene plays out like a simple father-daughter moment, ignoring the obvious psychological tension. Instead of challenging Jinx's loyalty or forcing her to process her past, the story presents this as just another conversation between them. This raises important questions. Did Jinx genuinely care about Vander? If so, why is she so comfortable with Silco, the man responsible for Vander's downfall? And what about Silco? Why does he freely remind Jinx of this, knowing Vander was once her father figure? Is he reinforcing her dependence on him? Testing her loyalty? The story never explores these ideas well, skipping over the very conflicts that should define their relationship. One could say Jinx is staying with Silco since he comforts her, but this makes little sense when Echo exists. He should have reminded Powder of her past and given her a place to belong. Arcane does not give the audience a good reason for Silco and Jinx's bond. Vinland Saga roots its characters' actions in their traits, allowing their relationship to develop in a natural and inevitable way. Thorfinn and Askeladd's relationship is defined by a warrior's code that allows Thorfinn to kill Askeladd honorably in a duel. But why doesn't he just kill him in his sleep? Because warriors like his father wouldn't do that. Why doesn't Askeladd kill Thorfinn? since he doesn't see him as a threat, respects Thor's, and finds Thorfinn useful. Their dynamic doesn't stop there, as Thorfinn refuses to let Askeladd insult his father because of his deep love and respect for him. Both characters are getting something out of the relationship that works, considering who they are. Askeladd and Silco share key traits. Both are cunning, manipulative, and ruthless. However, Vinland Saga uses these qualities to directly shape Askeladd's relationship with Thorfinn, creating a dynamic built on conflict. Unlike Jinx, who immediately clings to Silco, Thorfinn wants to kill Askeladd, and their relationship is driven by years of tension. Silco is instantly framed as a father figure, while Askeladd slowly grows into that role. With Silco, the audience is expected to change their understanding of his character to justify his sudden shift. In contrast, Askeladd's actions remain consistent with what the story's already established. His change is born out of seeing Thorfinn differently. When Thors is killed, we see that Askeladd's not just another Viking raider. He views Thors as an honorable yet foolish warrior, admirable but impractical in a brutal world. This is shown when he suggests Thors should be their new leader, only to laugh it off, disguising how he really feels. Even in victory, Askeladd shows respect. He gives Thors his word as a warrior to leave, and openly admits that he lost. In Vinland Saga, the story challenges the audience to understand who Askeladd is. In Arcane, it leaves them wondering why Silco is acting out of character. I know what you might think if you see Silco as a great villain. He takes in Powder because he sees himself in her, abandoned and betrayed by someone he trusted, just as Vander betrayed him. The issue with this interpretation is when you look back, it doesn't hold up. Vi told Powder to stay, but Powder disobeyed, acting on her own, and ultimately causing the deaths of her family. This is not similar to Silco's experience. Vander, who once stood up against killing, ended up drowning his best friend in a brutal act of betrayal. Silco had every reason to see Vander as a traitor and potentially a hypocrite. But Powder? She recklessly ignored Vi's instructions, and in doing so, destroyed everything. From Silco's perspective, there's no strong reason for him to feel sympathy for Powder. And for the audience, their connection feels more like a misstep than something properly set up. Meanwhile, Vinland Saga gives Askeladd a genuine reason to see himself in Thorfinn. The story carefully bridges the gap between them. Like Thorfinn, Askeladd once sought revenge against someone who wronged his parent. But unlike Thorfinn, Askeladd succeeded. He got his revenge, and in doing so, he understands what it truly means to kill someone you hate. This is not even why they're bonded together, it's just another layer to their relationship. Thorfinn, despite all his rage, could never bring himself to kill Askeladd in his sleep. But Askeladd had no such hesitation when it came to his own father. When Askeladd shares his backstory, his words can be interpreted in multiple ways. He may be suggesting that Thorfinn doesn't hate him as much as he claims to, or that Thorfinn's refusal to kill him dishonorably proves that in some way, he's a better man than Askeladd ever was. In this sense, Thorfinn embodies the qualities of someone who can become a true warrior, not just a mindless killer, but someone who clings to a sense of honor. Askeladd, for all his cunning, sees himself as Viking trash to some extent. He despises the Vikings and their way of life, yet he's still one of them. This contradiction brings us to one of the most important aspects of writing a complex character, their contradiction and motivation. Silco wants Zon to have independence, but his contradiction revolves around his loyalty to Jinx and Zon. The issue with Silco's contradiction is we never fully understand what he wants for the people of Zon. His actions suggest that he doesn't actually care about the city or its people. He's driven by his own selfish desire. He willingly floods the streets with Shimmer, runs child factories, and rules through fear rather than trust. Even before the time skip, he acts purely out of personal vengeance, killing Grayson and betraying Marcus, without having the proper resources to fight Piltover in case they were to retaliate. From the beginning, it seems like he's more motivated by personal gain than by any genuine desire to achieve independence for Zon. This contradiction could have worked if Silco actually did something tangible to improve Zon overall. The story could have shown him struggling with the decision to kill Grayson, knowing it could lead to the invasion of Zon. But this doesn't happen. His attack on Grayson has no consequences, and instead, the focus shifts entirely to his relationship with Jinx. Rather than being a leader, he lets Jinx run wild without regard for Zon's stability. Silco's contradiction falls apart because his goal is poorly integrated into his character and actions. His character could have worked if the story had shown him making real sacrifices for Zon's future rather than endangering it as early as episode 3. Instead, his reckless decisions wreck his credibility as a revolutionary. Askeladd's contradiction goes back to Vikings and their culture, yet he is still a Viking. Unlike Silco, Askeladd's internal struggle is reflected in his behavior. He deliberately distances himself from his men, rarely participating in their celebrations, and often remaining on the outskirts after they conquer a village. His mixed reaction to violence is further demonstrated when he recognizes Atli is not a savage warrior and makes him promise that he will never pick up a sword again. Askeladd acknowledges that he is a Viking, and it is a means to an end. To him, the ends justify the means. His true goal is to protect Wales from invasion and create a better world. Askeladd operates within the Viking system because he knows the world is broken. He recognizes that he is somewhat of a savage and hates himself. He respects those who rise above this savagery, such as Thors and Canute. He believes Canute is more fit than him to lead. Askeladd's contradiction works because it aligns with his core beliefs and choices. When faced with the ultimate decision, sacrificing Canute or saving Wales, he chooses the option that guarantees victory, sacrificing himself. The story earns this moment because it has already demonstrated that Askeladd deeply cares about whales, and he despises those who disrespect his people. His belief in Canute isn't just about manipulation. He genuinely sees Canute's potential as a ruler who can bring about change. The story consistently implies Askeladd's true nature. His final sacrifice is an inevitable conclusion, going down, appearing to have lost his mind, only for his true motives to remain hidden, leaving those who truly know him to understand. In contrast, when Silco's given a choice between Zaan's independence and sacrificing Jinx, the conflict feels underdeveloped, since he lacks the same deep connection to Zaan that Askeladd has to whales. His decision to choose Jinx lacks weight because he's already chosen her over Zaan multiple times. Jinx repeatedly creates problems for him, yet he never punishes or controls her. Much of their relationship looks like Jinx is in control. When Silco thinks about his big choice, it's framed as Silco finally understanding how Vander feels. But this doesn't make sense. He should have already understood this. Silco knew Vander and Jinx's mother, Felicia, and he was told to build a better world for her children. It doesn't add up for him to act like he's just now learning about personal bonds. Season 2 weakens Silco's character even further. Jinx suggests that if Silco had simply read Vander's apology letter, everything would have been fine, confusing their entire relationship. This implies that Jinx never truly understood Silco, despite how the story framed their bond. In Vinland Saga Season 2, Askeladd's presence continues to influence Thorfinn's journey. As Thorfinn abandons his quest for revenge, Askeladd is a guiding presence in his transformation, helping him move toward a new purpose in life. Overall, a poorly written, complex villain fails to weave their gray morality, relationships, and actions into a cohesive character. Their complexity feels superficial or unearned, often due to inconsistent contradictions, motivations, or relationships. This is why Askeladd succeeds, whereas Silco falls short. All that aside, Askeladd absolutely destroys Silco in a fight.